Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. My name is Catherine, and if you are new here, we talk about all things homesteading, homemaking, and just our journey to a slower, more simple life. In today's video, I thought I would take you with me to show you how I make 3 typically known as comfort food or convenience foods and turn it into a homemade version. Unfortunately, a lot of the processed foods that we can pick up for convenience at our grocery store is just filled with things that can be very bad for our health. You may or may not know that already, but I do want to show you how you can make the alternative of those foods from scratch. Making food from scratch, you know exactly what's going into it and exactly what you are feeding yourself and your family. The recipes I am going to show you today are going to be mac and cheese, ramen, and pizza. So if you would like to learn how to make those foods from scratch, which is much better for you, your health, and usually your budget as well, then stay tuned because we're going to hop right into it. So first, let's start with the mac and cheese. And for our mac and cheese, you can use any pasta and just get that to a boil like you normally would. I'm going to use both cheddar and a little bit of Parmesan, so I'm going to grate that up. And then on the stovetop, you're going to want to melt some butter. Get that starting to melt before adding your shredded cheese to it. And make sure you're stirring this and it's on a low heat at this time because you don't want it to burn. I'm going to add some milk to it, and then I'm going to get some cornstarch to thicken it. You could also thicken it with flour if you wanted to. And I'm going to mix the cornstarch into cream with cream, heavy cream. And you want to make sure you mix that all up until it's completely smooth. And before you add it to the rest of the mixture, make sure it's getting to a soft boil because it won't thicken it unless it is at that temperature. Then add it and just keep stirring, and you will see that it will thicken up. Just like any store-bought mac and cheese is powders that make thick cheese, it'll thicken up just like that. Look how good that looks, and definitely taste it. I'm not giving measurements because it depends how much you're making, but if you feel it needs more cheese, add more cheese. And I'm going to also add a little bit of paprika and garlic just to be a little bit fancy. That's completely up to you. But look at this nice texture that we have. Then of course you just drain the pasta. And I am going to bake it a little bit, so I'm putting it in a already greased pan and adding my cheese to it. And I'm personally going to go ahead and top it with some breadcrumbs as well, but that is completely optional. Baking it is also completely optional, but it just adds a little bit something special to it. So in the oven at 350 for just a few minutes, and there you have super simple homemade mac and cheese. So our next recipe is going to be ramen, which I know is a big staple. You can easily do either chicken or beef following this. Just change the stock for chicken or beef and obviously adding whichever meat. But I'm just adding a couple quarts of beef stock and putting some carrot peelings. I do it this way because I like that really thin carrot in my ramen personally, but you can chop it however. I add broccoli, and I like to add Worcestershire sauce, I think I say that right, and quite a bit of soy sauce. I also add some ginger, and this is going to be cooking over a medium-ish heat. Of course, salt and pepper. And I get these specific organic ramen noodles, so I thought I would show you. I usually honestly just throw them right in to the same pot near the end of the cooking time, but to make sure they are a specific consistency, because I have some picky eaters, I'm putting it in a separate pot to boil up. Now that this is looking really good, I'm going to add my already cooked steak to this and my ramen. You could take a day to pre-cook beef and or chicken to be able to pull out when you want to make something fast like ramen. You can definitely refreeze meat that you have cooked. So if that's kind of up your alley for something super quick, then I would consider doing that. And now all it is just mixing it up and getting myself a bowl, and it is that easy. Now let's get started with the very last recipe, which is pizza. And we start out with the pizza dough. It takes 2 teaspoons of yeast in a bowl, and I'm going to add to that bowl also 2 tablespoons of olive oil, a tablespoon of sugar, and 1.5 cups of a warm water. And then I'm just going to go ahead and give that a little mix just to get the yeast starting to activate. In a separate bowl, you'll see I'm using a mixer, but you definitely don't need a mixer. You can do this all by hand. I have tons of times. But in a separate bowl, we're going to put some flour, probably 2 cups of flour to start, as well as a teaspoon of salt, and just get that mixing. As it's mixing, we're going to add our wet ingredients to our dry. If you don't have a mixer, you're doing it by hand, just add it all at once, no problem, and mix in. And then we're going to add another cup of flour. This recipe takes about 3 to 4 cups of flour total. You just want to check the consistency of your dough. We're wanting something that is stretchy and ever so slightly sticky, but not so sticky that it just clumps up on your hands. We're going to knead that a few times by hand, and then I'm going to go ahead, set it back in the bowl, cover it with a towel, and let it rise for about an hour. While that is rising, I'm going to go ahead and start with the pizza sauce. And there's lots of ways to make this, but I just take some tomato paste. I take garlic powder, oregano, and usually basil, but I was out today, so none today. And just some water to thin it out. Mix it on the stove top, and it turns into a really nice pizza sauce. Pizza sauce is something that you can make ahead, and you can pizza sauce or you can freeze it, so that can just make it even easier for you. The dough that I'm making also is able to be frozen, so you can make a ton of dough ahead of time and freeze it so that you don't have to do as much on a certain day. And I'm going to have some pepperoni on my pizza, so here I am slicing it up. Now I'm going to get my pizza tray, make sure it is greased, and pull out that nice dough. This recipe makes 2 pizza doughs unless you're making a gigantic pizza. So I'm going to go ahead and just take half of it, and I'm going to stretch it out to fit my tray. Just pull and move it around in your hands. You can see I'm trying very hard to look like a professional pizza maker. I'm just finishing stretching that by putting it right on the pan. And once you have your dough stretched out, go ahead and add your sauce, as much or as little as you like. It's all your preference. And then I'm going to go ahead and go with the classic mozzarella cheese for my pizza, although you can use any cheese you want. And you'll see I'm using a mozzarella ball opposed to shredded mozzarella. Just so you know, shredded cheeses that we see in the store usually have an anti-caking agent in them, which is something I don't want to eat. Once you have your pizza topped just the way you like it, go ahead and throw that in the oven at 350 and wait till it is a nice golden brown, and look how delicious that came out. Oh, that stretch. I hope you enjoyed those 3 recipes and that you will try them out for yourself. If you like the kind of content of learning how to be a little bit more slow, simple, and naturally minded, then please consider subscribing so that you can join me here for the next video. I love to try to help and share the things that I do in my life that may benefit you in your life as well. I hope to see you next time. Bye-bye!